Well, it's not just the majority of the trucking industry and our essential supply chain at risk of coming to a standstill, but now family and luxury vehicles are facing the same prospect thanks to the dwindling supply of a diesel engine additive. AdBlue is made from the chemical urea, which China has banned from being imported, which thereby drains Australia of 90% of its supply. Now, the federal government is desperately trying to source other suppliers around the world, while the price of the only available stock of AdBlue is now going through the roof. Joining me now is Simon OHara, the CEO of Road Freight New South Wales. Simon, welcome to the show. In sheer numbers and across what parts of Australia does China's ban on this chemical impact our supply chain?
G'day, Chris. Great to be here tonight. The ban on urea coming to Australia, amongst other countries, affects all facets of the freight industry. Half of Australia's trucks use AdBlue. It's a way in which we combat pollutants from the diesel engines, and so as a consequence, when China turned the tap off, we saw shortages, and we're seeing shortages right now. We're rapidly trying to source other countries that can supply urea, that quality urea for us. And what that means effectively is that a lot of transport operators, freight operators, are out there in the market right now buying up AdBlue where they can. It's problematic because it's running dry, and that's a real problem. And where they can find it, it's gone up sixfold. So the real issue here is that we need to find a new seller of that quality urea so that we can keep the trucks moving, because as you know, without trucks Australia stops, and that's a real concern for us, and that's why we've raised this issue. It's in the public interest, and it's in the interest of the freight industry that delivers just about everything we have on our shelves, whether it be supermarkets, whether it be the water we drink, in terms of the chemicals that go into it so that we can drink it, but also medical supplies. So for us, we're calling this out given that the predictions were early Feb that we'd run out. We think it's time for government to act now and act quickly.
Are you aware of government action to contact other countries to try and get new supplies?
So all I've seen have been media reports about contact with the Middle East. I've noted that there's been some progress in relation to Indonesia, that they might deliver us another couple of weeks of urea that's compatible to make AdBlue. What I have noted today is one of the milk carters in New South Wales, they've come out publicly and said, we have run down on our AdBlue stock, and a couple more weeks isn't going to make much of a difference. So from our perspective and from what I'm hearing from operators, they're very concerned. I'm getting calls over the weekend. I got a lot of calls from operators, whether they be big, small or medium, and they're extremely concerned. I had one operator travel 100 kilometres to be able to get AdBlue. So there are concerns out there that the supply we've got at the moment isn't sufficient, and that we need another source of that quality urea, which is one half of AdBlue, so that we can keep the trucks moving. It's essential. As you know, it's essential that we get the supply lines sorted, but also confidence returned to the freight industry. And it's not just freight that's affected. Urea goes into a whole lot of things, including those light vehicles that you mentioned. There's some luxury cars and there's some Ford Everests out there that require it as well, amongst others.
What about local councils? I would have thought they have reason to be quite concerned, because most of the garbage trucks, and I was contacted this afternoon by a garbage contractor, they run on the same thing. They need AdBlue to keep going. If we can't pick up garbage in Australia, we're in real strife.
Spot on. It affects all facets of our country and our way of life. And the real concern we've got is that come the end of Christmas, what are we going to see in terms of supply? And the question I'm being asked every day, in fact almost every hour, is where can I get AdBlue? How much is it? And where do I have to go? And they're the simple questions that are being asked of me all the time. And the problem is that we need to get on top of this and get on top of it quickly. So Dan Tehan and Angus Taylor need to move and move quickly, because this issue isn't a niche issue. This affects all of us, and it affects the freight industry. And as you know, the freight industry has carried the load during COVID and stepped up to the mark and done an awesome job, and kept going, whether it be through the constant border changes or the constant testing. They've kept going and they've stepped up. And now what we're seeing is another crisis hit the industry, which is leading many of them to despair, to be honest. There's a lot of them that find this issue something that was eminently foreseeable. And
can I just ask you one thing? There's a furphy running around, and I got a few calls about it on my radio program this morning from Truckies saying, oh, we can replace AdBlue with water. Now, I'm sure they do that in an emergency situation to get to the last 2 kilometres back to the depot, but that's not sustainable. That's a furphy, isn't it?
Look, I would note this, that if you take AdBlue out of the AdBlue tank and you don't put anything in there, then AdBlue crystallises. It's corrosive, that's one. Two, putting water into the AdBlue tank is problematic because it might work, and I had a good chat to an expert in this, a mechanic out at Preston's who I spoke to the other night, who I put the same question to him. And he said to me, you'll get 50 hours out of your truck, and then the computer will say, go immediately to your service centre. So that might be in extreme circumstances, but it's not a long-term fix or even indeed a short-term fix.
These are very expensive rigs which you don't want to destroy. I've got to leave it there. Simon OHara, thank you very much for your time.
$500,000.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much for your time. Okay.